Good morning, or whatever time of day it is for you while you're watching this. It is morning for me, and it's a good one. I am on the patio, so I am going to light some Palo Santo. I haven't lit any of my incense for a couple weeks now. Maybe just over even a couple weeks. And I miss it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to be partially outside. I can do it. That's where I can do it. I'll probably just make a habit of doing it out here. Angels, guides, and ancestors, bless me and cleanse me of any negative energy. Bless this space and cleanse this space of any negative energy. It feels so much nicer because it's outside, to be honest. This house is wonderful, and the whole house feels great, but outside always feels so much clearer. Please allow there to be no distractions. Allow it just to be a peaceful time while I do this read. We leg of the birds. Supposed to go line dancing with my roommate tonight. I've never been line dancing and was told that they have a beginner's class as part of it, so I won't feel like I have to know anything. I can learn while we're there, which is something I obviously need to learn because I'm a Texan now, and I don't know how I could claim to live in Texas when I don't know how to line dance. Staying in Texas is different, but I live here now, so I really got to get with the program. Yeah, things are weird. Not really. This is probably going to be a little bit difficult on this table because it's slotted like a crate, like just little, 3-inch strips of wood with like a whole ass inch in between them. So cards are probably going to be flying all over the place for this read, just to be clear. But that's okay. We shall make it work. And I'm never, I don't make very flattering videos, but that's never supposed to be the focus anyways. I feel like if they're too flattering, then it looks like I'm sitting there like trying to appear some type of way and trying to get some type of attention, and I'm all focused on my appearance and stuff like that. I mean, the point of these things is really the message behind them. So again, we just deal. It's so nice out, and the thing that I love, well, I love a lot about Texas, to be honest, but like, it's so beautiful out right now, and like the sun is shining bright, big blue sky, but like all these different types of animals and birds and bugs. Like, I mean, okay, the one bird you hear yelling, I'm pretty sure is some type of corvid. We probably have the same sort of type of bird. I don't know what it is. I know my best friend's kids would know. Because they are obsessed with birds. They're just going through like this hyperfixation on birds phase. Learning everything about birds. Well, and his middle son wants to study birds for a living. It's so sweet. They're incredibly intelligent kids. So well educated too. A little bit of the both. It's real sweet. But yeah, there's like so many big dragonflies and beetles and stuff here that I really enjoy. And there's a lizard, and there might even be there. Well, I'm sure there's several lizards. I saw him on the patio the other night, on the outside of the patio, but it's a screened-in patio. But apparently he'll sneak in through a hole in the garage too, and sometimes he's in the garage. And I just think that's so cute. I love lizards. I do. I used to have lizards. I had a couple green anoles as pets. There's 2 butterflies fucking. It's beautiful. I had a couple snakes. I've had a couple snakes, actually. I used to always go to my grandma's house in Iowa. Well, we didn't always go, but when I would go to my grandma's house in Iowa, I would get the garter snakes out of her garden because they would, like, kill all of the good bugs and stuff like that in her garden. So she wanted them out of there, and I loved snakes, so I would always volunteer, and I would, like, get a shoebox and fill it full of garter snakes and then take them out. And one time my dad let me take them home with us. We took them the whole way to Wisconsin and then put them out in our yard. And I remember, like, which I don't know if that's a good thing to do or not, bringing native creatures from one place and putting them somewhere else. Might have fucked everything up that time. I don't know. But we let them out, and I just remember, like, the ground looking like it was slithering, and it was real neat. And then I had corn snakes. I had 2 different corn snakes. The first one I had was Carmel. She was albino, but like that peach-colored one with the red eyes. And, yeah, she was like orange, red, peach. Beautiful. She was such a sweetheart. The sweetest thing. Super smart, but like super, super sweet, docile. Then she started getting a little frisky in her older age, and ended up having to get rid. I gave her back to the guy that we got her from when she was a baby. I got her when she was like this big. She looked like a pencil. She was skinny, tiny, tiny little thing that would just like wrap around your fingers. By the time I gave her back, she was almost 5 feet long. She was over 4 feet long, and she was probably like that thick at the thickest. Yeah, like about a quarter around. And I gave her back to the guy that owned the pet store that we got her from, and he was like, yeah, because she needs to hunt. He's like, that's why she's getting aggressive. She was biting me, which she never, ever, ever did. She was the sweetest snake. But he was like, she's at that age. She needs to hunt. And I also had a pet mouse at the time and always had hamsters. So I felt bad about getting, like, my mouse's siblings to feed to my snake. I couldn't do it. And I wanted to make sure that she got what she deserved. You know, she deserved to be able to hunt. She's a fucking predator. So I got rid of her. But then, like, when I got older, when I was in Baltimore, actually, even though that was such a weird time in my life, there were so many incredible, amazing things about it, too. It was one of the hardest things I've ever been through, but it was also one of, well, it's hard to say now in comparison, but it was also one of there's so much, big old monarch, there's so much to be thankful for about that experience. And we had a snake for a short time. Her name was Cleopatra. She was all white. She was beautiful. She was like, had this like, she was a corn snake, but she was all white and like, kind of like, you could see the markings on her, but she was all white. And her eyes were like a real pale pink, so like even they looked almost white. And she had this like rainbowy translucence to her. She's gorgeous. Gorgeous. I've never seen a corn snake like that. She was so pretty. She was so nice. But we had fostered her for a while and then gave her to a different family. And I remember she was funny because she was about as big as Carmel was when I got rid of Carmel. She was pretty big. She was already grown when we got her. And I would, like, take her out to this one, like, big old stretch of land to let her play. I like doing that. Like, I do that with my dogs, right? Like, I go and find, like, a big old plot of grass where they can run around. So that's what I did with her. I took her out to go run around. And it was probably in part, I mean, she was a sweetheart too, but she was also extremely shy, like extremely shy. I imagine that's probably because she's a white snake. Like, she's straight the prey of all prey. Like, any bird could spot her from any mile away, and, you know, any sort of predator could see her very clearly in comparison to anything else because she's so white. So yeah, she was very, very shy and liked to stay hidden. So it was funny because when I would take her out, plus, like, you know, like, you got to be careful with albinos, especially like snakes and stuff like that that have a skin. They have scales, but, like, you know, their scales aren't like what a lot of people think, and they're not hard like a crocodile scales or anything like that. They're very soft, and she actually, like, the sun could damage her if she was out in the sun too long. So, you know, you got to be careful about those things with them reptiles. They love the sun because they're cold-blooded, so they need the warmth, but they can't be in direct sunlight too long. It depends. Lizards can. It just depends on how thick their skin is. Either way, I took her out, and I remember, like, her slithering around and stuff like that, and then I was, like, chasing her, and so she tried to, like, hide in the grass. She, like, found this patch of really tall grass, and she went to, like, hide in it, and she was, like, moving real slow, and she's, like, trying to sneak through it, like, I couldn't see her, like, she was gonna get me. But she, like, didn't realize how long she was, and it was just so funny, because, like, you could see that, like, from the front, she thought she was being so slick, and, like, you couldn't see her. You could only kind of see her sometimes in the grass, because it was real thick grass. But then the entire, like, last half of her body, like, the back half of her body was just out. And it was so funny because she's just, like, bright white. So, like, you could see exactly where she was the whole time. And I think she was like, why? How do you know where I'm at? She thought she was hiding so well, and it was so cute. Yeah, reptiles are cute. Bugs are cute. Animals are cute. Life is cute. Plants are cute. My plants are so much happier today. They're much happier now than they have been for a few days, because they were in the hot cart. Like, while I was unloading everything, I loaded them in last, just so that I could have everything already set up when I brought them into the house, and that way I could be like, okay, we're home. This is how it is. Now no more moving around, because they were tired of being in the car. Well, they had already been in the car, you know, for a period of time. Not really, I guess. Bless me. They had been in a hotel. I say bless me, and a butterfly shows up. I like this butterfly. It's a big old monarch. Thank you. It's a cute blessing. Yeah, we were in a hotel, so it wasn't like they were in the car for too terribly long, but they were probably in the car for about an hour. And I don't have air in my car, which is not really the ideal for Texas, but thankfully I'm here in the fall right now, so I can get it fixed by the time I need it to be. But it does get a little warm, and it was kind of sweltering in there for that period of time. I didn't really think about it as I was, like, loading and unloading everything. Normally I have the windows down, but I was, like, opening the doors and stuff like that, so I had just everything closed up. And by the time I got them into the house, they were so mad. They were mad and sad and, like, limp and wilty. And, yeah, they're still... We're getting along better, but, like, they were mad at me for a couple days. Like, they did not respond at all to me. They're like... Houseplants tend to be very sociable. You know, outdoor plants, even ones that, like, have been planted, like trees and stuff or bushes or whatever that have been planted outside, flowers and whatnot. It's kind of a hit or miss, you know, in gardens and stuff like that. Like, each of the plants, every plant has its own personality too. So, like, you know, it's a hit or miss when it comes to them. But, like, generally, houseplants, no, I've met ones that are, like, not social at all. It's funny. But often they tend to be, especially if they haven't, like, interacted much with any other type of nature, they tend to be a lot more, like, human oriented that way. So, like, you will actively watch them respond to your energy. But, and, like, you can, like, feel them. But yeah, these plants were not happy with me. And mostly because, you know, I took them into the car, and then it was hot, and then we're driving, and they had never driven like that before. They had driven to get to the place where I bought them, because I bought them at a market. and they're beautiful, and they were well cared for, and you could tell that they came out of a greenhouse of sorts, like, and then they'd been indoor their entire life. This was the first time that they were outside, but the woman had everything set up where, like, they're with all of the plants that they've grown up with, and, like, they're with the woman that's been taking care of them, and, like, they're happy. They were fine, even though it was super, super hot outside that day. They were fine. But it was also kind of breezy where she had it, and they were in the shade. That's what it is, in the shade. And she told me, like, they don't, not fans of the sun, these guys, and they really aren't. It's so funny. They like the sun to come through the window and shine on them for a couple hours. But at that point, they also like there to be a fan on, or like the air to be on. They need it to be cool in the room when the sun is shining on them. Otherwise, they like indirect sunlight, which, like, I had told a friend about it, and they were like, yeah, but aren't they cactuses? Like, they're cacti. Like, why? Like, they're out in the fucking desert. And it's like, yeah, but these are indoor cacti. They were raised indoors. Like, they aren't built for the desert. And I put them through a desert in the car, and them moving around and stuff like that. Well, that was like, they're pretty okay. But they thought we were going home because I kept telling them we were going home. But I was mistaken, and we actually had one more night that we weren't going home. And so I went to a different hotel that was like closer to my house. And they weren't happy about that. They weren't happy about that because once we got in the car and started moving and stuff like that, like, they're like, okay, now we're going home. And then I brought them up to the hotel, and I was like, just kidding, there's one more night. And they were like, you're telling us we're going to get back in that car again? We're going to be moving again? Like, this isn't where, this was supposed to be our final destination, but it wasn't. And then I'm like having to like carry them up and down the stairs, just because it's closer than the elevators, and it was easier that way. But then, like, they were not happy, especially this one in particular that I've been giving like so much attention to too, and I think they're irritated about that. Like, I tend to irritate my plants. I don't mean to, I just don't know them as well. I'm like still learning how to connect with plants properly. And like, I'm kind of like how a lot of people are with cats, where like cats don't want to be interfered with. Like, they don't let them come up to you. They don't want you going up to them and like being all up in their shit and stuff. And I'm like that with plants, where like, oh my goodness, look at you. And I'm like touching them and stuff, and they're like, get the fuck out of my space, lady. But no, I mean, they're sweet. They're real sweet. I'm gonna repot them a bit so that I can like, look at that bird. It's like a wren. I've never seen a bird like that. Hold on. Oh my god, it's so cute. I don't think I can turn the camera around. Where'd he go? Oh, look at him. I don't think you can. Can you see? Oh, there he goes. He looks like a little raptor. Oh, what a cute bird. It's one of those, like, it's like a wren, I think is what they're called. Like a roadrunner type bird. Oh my god, he's so cute. And he is quick. I think it's like a roadrunner type thing, only he doesn't have super long legs, but like, I love it. Oh, there's like some weird bird making a sound over here. I love the animals around here. It's so cool. And like, there's armadillos. I have not had the pleasure of seeing one alive. When I was hiking to Texas last year along the highway, I got to see lots of dillos. They were all smashed to shit. And they stink weird. Like, they stink different. I'm used to the smell of like dead deer, dead squirrels and stuff like that. Just like roadkill in general, because that's the kind of roadkill that we have. Oh, and there's a red squirrel. That's the kind of roadkill that we have up in like the Midwest. But dillos have a weird smell to them. They got a weird smell, like kind of how like reptiles have a weird smell too. Dillos have just this weird, Well, plus, like, I don't normally make a habit of getting up close and personal like that with roadkill, and I was literally, like, having to walk, like, directly beside it in the sweltering fucking sun, so, like, maybe that had something to do with it. Man, nature is so nice. I love you, nature. I do. So happy to be here. So happy to be here. And there's a juice land like within walking distance from my house. It would take like 40 minutes to walk there, but that's still within walking distance. It's totally fine. Nice little walk. It's a really nice area that I live in. It's all quiet. It's beautiful. Like, it's just so nice. And juice land, we don't have those up north, but down here they are top notch. They have these vitamin shots that are just made out of fruits and vegetables. And the one that my favorite one is the Dr. Doctor. It has like turmeric and I think garlic. It has ginger, beets, cayenne, habanero, like a whole bunch of random stuff, but it's kind of like a spicy, it's like a spicy beet shot. So good. And they're small. You just get like an ounce or two. But they make you feel, they make you feel great. And you can put other stuff like bee pollen or CBD or whatever different types of stuff you can get added to it too if you want, which is really cool. But yesterday I had this banh mi wrap. Banh mi, I guess. Banh mi wrap. I say banh mi. It was so fucking good. It's shiitake mushrooms. Like this, like, it was just so good. With an aioli. Like this, like, kind of spicy aioli. I'm gonna get one today, too, because it was too good. Too good. Okay. I just feel very nice, and it feels so nice to feel very nice, man. Like, at this time last year, I was finally actually in Austin, and I'm pretty sure I was just getting into a space. This time last year, I was actually already in a space. I had just gotten into a space, but I did not feel safe and secure fully. And even then, that was an incredible, insane blessing. That was so nice. But I had been on the street for 7 weeks prior to that, so like, I was covered in bug bites still. I like had no money at all, so I was like eating rice every day. I ate rice every day for 2 months. Like, that's all that I ate. I had rice, and sometimes I'd be able to get like spinach that I could put in it. Sometimes I could get an onion or a bell pepper. But that's only if like somebody happened to like throw me a couple bucks or something when they seen me just like out trying to get Wi-Fi. Because I did not ask for money, and I'd never asked for money, and I was trying my hardest to work, and I could not for the life of me get a job at that time, and like it was really, really difficult to not be incredibly depressed. And I was doing an amazing job. I was doing the best job I'd ever had at that point. And I was so proud of myself then too. And so it's nice to like I'm in an even better position now. I'm stronger now. I'm more stable mentally and physically. But like to see the rewards of all of that work too, like, man, I put work people like will probably never, hopefully never have to. I want people to be able to become completely self-actualized, but like, I don't want people to have to go through the things that I went through in order to get there. You know what I mean? Like, that was really, really rough and scary, and there's just so much, and I just like had to keep going, and I just had to keep going, and I haven't had a break like this in years. Ever. I've never had this, what I have right this minute, like, this sense of peace and security. And like, it feels weird. Like, there's like these random, like, all of a sudden my body will just start like getting really anxious out of nowhere. And I'll have to be like, no, that's just me being excited because of how nice everything is now. Or like my body's like anticipating like something bad happened. It's like, no, you don't have to be worried. You can just be excited because like, this is good. so good and it's so nice. I want to get something so that these cards aren't all falling. I didn't even think about that until I had started already. I got the World in reverse, came out face up, and its clarifier that came face down is the Ace of Cups in reverse. Which, like, is weird. It's just because those cards generally resonate in the reverse as, like, a sort of insecurity or a sense of lack. Just like the opposite of what I was literally just expressing. I mean, there's still a fear of those things in different ways. It's definitely not like everything's, I'm not set for life right now by any means. I still have plenty of work to do just to maintain a sense of stability and security. That's just life, though, like this is the first time that I've actually felt like I can like start actually engaging in life for real. Maybe that's part of this is because where I'm at right now is where like most people my age were at like out of high school because their families had set them up with a sense of security and stability. And like, some of them went to college, like when they went to college, like it felt less secure because they had to like, few of them had to work during the time that they were in college. A lot of them just got college paid for by their parents. But some of them had to work, a few of them had to work, and I remember that being like, when I was in my early 20s, that was like a sign of like super maturity, where it was like, damn, like, you didn't get these things covered for you, like, you gotta actually work while you're in school. Like, how do you even work while you're in school? Most of my friends didn't have kids in their 20s. They didn't start having kids until they were in their late 20s. But some of them did. I even had like a girlfriend that was a single mom in school. At the same time that she was working. She had to work in order, obviously, to pay for all of those things. And I thought that was wild. I couldn't even comprehend it. Where now that's just the norm, almost. Like, good luck doing anything without also having to sell your soul for it, But also, like, it seems like people are having kids later and later. It's so bizarre to me when, like, and I guess that was the mindset for a lot of people, especially people that had a certain level of security. They actually had the freedom to be away in their 20s, that then they start settling down in their 30s. I've just found it weird that, like, now I've met, like, multiple men that are in their 30s that are like, no, I'm starting to get close to settling down. Like, by the time I'm 40, I would like to have a kid. Or, like, I feel like in my 20s, like, guys were like, by the time I'm 30, I want to start having kids. So that's been weird. Because I kind of thought that I was, like, over that hump, too, almost. Like, okay, I didn't have kids during the preliminary have kids period, so, like, I'm a single woman without kids now. Like, that's my status. Like, that's how it is now. Like, that's how I'm gonna be. Now I still have these dudes that are like, no, I would settle down with you and have kids with you right now. And I'm like, I'm almost 35. Like, there was this concept I had in my 20s where that, like, a woman at 35 is, like, past her prime. And guys look at me now where they're like, no, you're like perfect right now. You're right where I want you. Ugh, it's weird. It's weird, but I guess it like also like I have friends that are like 35 to 40 and they feel so old, and they kind of do remind me of where my parents, like our parents, I guess, you know, all were around those times, and that those ages, I mean, and it's because they had kids in their 20s, you know, or I don't know, because that's a big one too. If you start to have kids in your 30s, like you age quick. I think even if you physically don't, you like emotionally do, mentally do, for sure. And it's just so weird being at this age, because like being single without kids, people assume I'm younger than I am because I have more freedom. And like it's definitely, it's not just an appearance thing. Like I take care of myself a certain way, but like it's not even that. It's that I don't have that lifestyle. I don't have those responsibilities. I'm like free to do other things. And so it's just a weird balance. And so I don't know, what I'm getting from this is like by the time I've finally gotten where I felt like I was supposed to be 10 years ago, 10 years. Like it has been a long 10 years. I have lived many lifetimes in this period of time. Lived at least a lifetime every year, if not a couple. And like at the same time, like 10 years ain't shit. And it was just yesterday, right? And like obviously it isn't long because I'm only 35 and I can like begin my life now. And like what a weird place to, I just never saw it for myself. I never saw myself living past 27. I thought I was going to be part of the 27 club just because of how hard life was leading up into that. And once I made it over 27, then I was convinced I was going to die at 30. Kill myself, essentially, right? I was obsessed with the idea of killing myself most of my life. And mostly because I just didn't have a sense of myself or my true identity. So I was very susceptible to those energies where like the more I got to know myself, the more I was like, oh no, wait, I'm cool. Like I'm good. Like I like myself. Like I'm fun and I'm nice and I'm hardworking and like I think I'm physically attractive and like I, you know, have like a lot going for me. And like the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, no, I'm like great. Like I'm like very happy with myself. Which is also weird because I've also noticed recently that like a lot of people like between my age and 45 are like miserable and like very unhappy with themselves in a way that like I was going through that in my teens and 20s. Like the desire to kill myself was very, very real. I can imagine it must be much harder if you just like la-di-da kind of lived your life doing the things and like you thought things were hard back then because you hadn't actually experienced hard, and now you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s and like things are actually hard, and like how like disillusioning that can be is probably really intense. And like the depression that comes at an older age actually tends to be far more sophisticated and thus like impactful, I guess. Like more like, you know, when I was 16 and just feeling like a whole bunch of different ways, yeah, there was a lot of it that was foundational in my experience, but there was a lot of it that was just like hormonal and stuff like that too, and just like kind of having to wait those things out. Dude, I'm just so thankful for my life. So thankful for my life and how it's been. But it is weird because like, yeah, no, the world is upside down and everybody's like, look at the world, we're all going to shit, everything's going to shit. And like, you'll hear me say that from time to time and stuff like that. Like, I get it, I understand those sentiments. But in my experience, the life hasn't been better. Like, things have, and I see things like, they kind of need to continue to be on their head and like continue to turn onto their head or whatever. And like, things need to continue to be dismantled before like we can all be on solid ground. Like, I think most people were just, yeah, like disillusioned. Like most people were really caught up in the illusion of freedom, the illusion of freedom. And like it's never actually existed. And that was all just a setup. And that's why so many people are feeling it now when they have to be responsible for different things now. They're like feeling incredibly depressed and incredibly like at a lack of self, and like they don't know themselves, they don't understand their identities, and like it's been a hard one for me too, because like I've kind of had to take this step back and be like, I mean, nobody was there for me during the times that I was going through that self-awakening process. And I think if somebody would have been there trying to hold my hand that entire time, I wouldn't have come to it the ways that I have. So like I watch these people and it's like I can feel the ways that I feel, where it's like I feel for you. I've been there. I feel very bad to watch people go through it. I don't like it, but like you have to go through that, and you have to be willing to. I didn't even have a choice. It wasn't a matter of being willing. It was like life literally forced it on me. And like I think that's what's happening to so many people too, and like I can't even really feel bad for you, because like I just hope that you're strong enough to like go through it, because it's worth it. And like what you see on the other side is like what you've actually always wanted, but like you do have to go through that process, and it's just hard for people. The same thing, like so many people are now coming to religion that were never part of it and stuff like that, and it's like I'm so blessed to have been raised with those things, because even though they never made any sense, and there's a lot that was like really fucked up about the way that I was raised, like it's benefited me for sure. For sure. And I do think that like it's better to be raised with those concepts, where then you can grow up as an adult and be like, oh, that was when I was a kid. I don't have to like follow these things or do these things. I can make my own choices. But you have those fundamental disciplines already instilled within you, where like now I see so many adults that are like struggling, trying to gain access to that sense of fundamentalism, that access to discipline, and those strong foundations within themselves, and like life just keeps lifing, so it's extremely hard for them to do so. And I'm so thankful I wasn't so rebellious. I was rebellious against my parents, but I was never rebellious against religion, honestly, until for a very short time when I was in my 20s. And even then, like I kind of maintained a weird sense of like I had a stoicism about it, but I still maintained my faith. And I'm thankful that I've always been a person of faith that way. Like even when I was a kid, I mean, I was an idiot. I didn't know or understand what was going on in my life. I was so extremely confused, and I was like being controlled in so many different ways, that faith was really all I could have. That like all of this was for a reason, that all of it was going to make sense eventually, and that like I would be okay. And like, I mean, yeah, that faith led me here. And like I'm just so thankful for it. And it's just a weird place to see that like the world, that was a skill I learned, I suppose, was like to not, it doesn't matter what's going on around me, I can still be a way. But now it's weird to like be at this age where like if I would have been set up to be stable and secure in this sort of way, because it's still so new and fresh, and like it's like a baby, it's like so like precious and fragile right now. And if I would have had this at 20, like so many did, like it feels like it would have made more sense back then, because I myself was also still that immature. But at the same time, the world back then was in such a different place that like it would have been extremely misleading. Where like where the world is now is on its head, and without peace, and lacking like perspective and faith and intuition, and because I learned that skill of not only do I not have to be what's going on around me, but it's almost like the worse that things are, the better I am. Because I learned just such a strong alchemy that like when the world is on its head and the Ace of Cups is turned completely over, I'm feeling this personally in myself, the Three of Cups and the Knight of Cups. Like, I feel so good. And like, it feels, I've never felt like witchier in that way, I guess, like, because it feels like, not that it feels evil, it feels somewhat unfair, though. It doesn't. I can't say it. How would I put this? It just feels cruel. It feels cruel that, like, so much of people's lives can be going to shit and so many people can be so lost and confused now. And I'm like, good. But, like, I spent 30 years in that confusion and in that poverty of mind and body and soul, and not knowing who I could turn to, not having anybody to turn to. I kept trying to turn to the people that I thought that I could trust, and they kept betraying me. Like, the amount of times I've been betrayed, you know that it's been wild. Like, I can say all I say, but the couple people that have known me, like my brother that I was the closest to my entire life, like, he knew me throughout my entire childhood, right? And he knew me in my young adulthood, and now we haven't known each other for, like, really almost, like, the last 10 years. Like, really, I've been estranged from my family almost that long. And so, like, he knows me from, like, the before time in my life, and that's when we were closest. And, like, he said himself that, like, he cannot believe, like, it is hard for him to process everything that I've been through, and the fact that I'm still standing, and the fact that I've handled it the way that I have. Like, it blows his mind. He really can't believe it. Meanwhile, like, my best friend is somebody who, like, I've known since I was about 12, 13, but we didn't really become close until I was no longer close to my family, because my family was betraying him around that same time too. They had already been betraying me. I was just becoming aware to it. But when I started moving away from them, they started betraying others and stuff too, right? And so he had to go through that whole process, which, like, we trauma bonded about it. I suppose that's where, like, the majority of our friendship came from, was that trauma bond, because we had both just been hurt by my family so similarly, in that type of way. But, like, I've been close to him now for the last 10 years, and, like, you know, to the point where, like, he knows me better than anybody else, which is, like, we've even laughed about, because, like, he also really, like, at no point in time does he actually know where I'm at, or, like, what I'm doing with my life, or, like, who I'm with, or, like, what's going on. And they'll be like, I didn't talk to him for, like, 2 years, and then just, like, was talking to him like nothing had ever changed, and he was like, it's been 2 years, and I was like, holy shit. I don't even notice. And this is the person that, like, I would consider absolutely closest to me. But he himself, like, then, you know, when we catch up about things and, like, different stuff, and, like, he's watched me go through so much, and, like, because he's still affiliated with my family and stuff too, like, he knows the reality of what I've been through in the last 10 years. And, like, he doesn't know every detail of everything, and, like, he doesn't know every story or anything like that, but he has a pretty good general consensus of everything I've been through. And he said the same thing, which, like, I was thinking about recently, how it just struck me, because he was like, I cannot believe everything you've been through. I can't believe that you're, like, and, like, that I've become, like, more mentally stable because of it, that I've become more physically stable, that I've become, like, happier of a person, and genuinely, like, more capable. Like I said, like, I used to want to kill myself all the time. That was, like, my general state of existence. And everybody saw me as pretty weak, I think, in general. And, like, now, like, I carry that with me. But, like, you're a fool if you really think that that's what I am. And I'm constantly proving the people that believe me to be weak and are willing to take advantage because of that, how foolish they are. Because, like, I don't think most people obviously, because people weren't being put through that, I don't think most people could have handled those things during the times that I was with them. But, like, now people are older and more mature, and there's more knowledge at hand. Like, my brother got me into the occult and stuff when I was very, very young, because he started getting into it when he was, like, 12, 13, 14. And he's older than me. So I was, like, a literal child when he would, like, come home high and, like, start telling me all this crazy stuff. And, like, you know, him and his friend were, like, getting into, like, witchcraft and stuff like that. So he would, like, tell me all of these crazy things, or, like, use me for crazy things. And I was introduced and like kind of inducted into those things at an extremely young age. So like I've developed into those things. So many of the conspiracies that are coming in out now, that people are talking about now, are things that like me and my brother were talking about and researching on the internet and at the libraries and stuff like that when I was like 12, 13. Like I was very young, and I didn't realize, and like, cause we grew up in such a sheltered, weird little Christian circle that like it wasn't really like a big thing. Like nobody knew the knowledge that I had or what I understood, and also no, like because nobody knew it, like nobody knew that I had it, but like nobody knew those things in general anyway, so they weren't being talked about in society. Those things are out now and like talked about and communicated in such a on such a large scale now that like everybody's kind of, I'm watching people, it's so weird, but like I'm literally watching people like go through the process I went through, but I went through it as a kid when I was like extremely ill prepared, but I'm watching them in the same sort of way go through it with the same sort of ill preparedness. And ultimately, like, because it all comes down to the inner child, right? Because of those things, I've always been able to be very close to my inner child, and I never lost that, where I think a lot of people never learned to engage with that properly, or they lost it, and now in adulthood it's kind of coming back up, and so I'm watching them go through this process, and it's just wild. It's just really, really weird. It's weird, but at the same time, then like now I'm also able to interact with these different people that like have all these different walks of life, and like I've never been where I've been, and I've never been where they've been, and we're not like looking for the same things or doing the same things or anything, but we're like meeting on all these different levels, and it's just so wild to see. And more than anything, what I really see is like a balance of things. Like if you were privileged, it's like I'm becoming more and more aware of my privilege. I was abused most of my life. I was neglected most of my life. I've been betrayed my entire life. I've been robbed most of my life, like my entire life. Like I've, been assaulted. I've been like attempted murdered. Like I've gone through so many different things, but like all of those things were truly a privilege. And like I've been able to go through those things to be able to come where I'm at now, to be able to consider them a privilege. And so what I'm seeing right now is everybody going through the abuse part. And I have the hope and anticipation and knowledge that like those things do eventually come to a sense of understanding the privilege. And I can only imagine what the world's going to look like once it really comes around that way. Like I feel like a weird type of like forerunner for these things. And there's also a part of me that strongly feels like I'm not going to be here to see it. Like almost like the Moses thing where like I kind of already fucked it up in different ways, where like I'm still called to do a work, and I will do the work with as much integrity as I possibly can. But the reward's already been had and kind of forsaken on my part in so many different ways. And like the benefit is just because my heart is in tune, and I want what's best for people. I want what's best for the world. I don't want any other innocent little girl to have to grow up the way that I did, and to go through the things that I did just to have what I have. And I want her to be able to have, I want them to be able to have, the blessings that I forsook. I want people to be able to receive the great inheritances, if it's for me to receive, by all means. Even this in of itself is proof that there is still blessings for me, and that is incredible, and I am so thankful for it. I just don't cling to those things. I don't need that validation in order to continue to do the work that I'm doing. And like there's so much that I've done in the world that people like wouldn't even know. They wouldn't even know, but I see the effects of it, and I'm so thankful that I did that work. And I know I was never alone doing that. It's not like I'm so special. It's not like I'm so great or so powerful. If I'm doing it, it's because the universe is literally having it be done in the world. And I'm sure, like, I don't know how many billions of people exist at this point. I thought it was like 9 billion, but when I see all these crazy numbers where it's like, okay, there's apparently just people. There's just so many people. So I can only imagine that there's millions of me. Millions of people just like me, who at any point in time are being called to the same things that I'm being called to. And you know, I think it's all of us. I think it's all of us at different times. I don't think I'm special that way, actually. Like, I think everybody has their time and place. And it's at different times and places. And those things are all coming together. At the same time, like, that's also just my perception. Like, things are all coming together in that way, but, like, things are always all coming together. Even when everything's falling apart, it's actually just falling into place. That's just the state of existence. And it's, like, in our own limited personal perspectives, especially socially, we tend to, like, you know, like the dark ages, or, like, now we're, like, coming back to, like, the Great Depression, but, like, those times were necessary for different types of growth and different types of progressions, and, like, over thousands of years, like, those things actually hold, like, far greater significance and meaning to a benefit. Like, if you're a scientist working in a petri dish, like, sometimes, like, you have to remove certain chemicals, or, like, enact certain types of chemical reactions, or, like, do all these different types of things that have all these different types of effects. And, like, if you were the atoms getting affected that way, you might feel some personal way about it. But when you're the scientist doing the manipulation, you don't really think twice about it, because you're only thinking about the end result. And I think that's just the state of being a human. And also, like, the state of our reptilian overlords. Not just reptilian, all of it. We're all connected. We're all, even if I am just an atom on a petri dish being affected chemically by a scientist outside of myself, like, they're, every single thing that they do, which is coming from every single thing that they've ever been and will do, sort of deal, you know, like, it affects me and helps me become who I am. So, like, we're all connected, and I'm also making them what they are. We can't work without each other. So, like, the cards right now are, this is generally, like, this has been very nice to start stimulating conversation, right? I love it, and there's a time and place for it. I'm not getting any particular feeling for a read right now, and the cards that I'm pulling are all in a negative. Initially, that was fine, because I can sit here and alchemize it, but, like, I don't even want to do the work right now like that. And I don't have to, because, like, things are nice just as they are. You know, and being able to receive that, and being able to be like, the bad times bring the good times. Bring more bad times, bring more good times. And it's all okay. It's all good. It's all good. Like, yeah, sitting there and weeding in the garden hurts your back, hurts your knees, hurts your hands. Like, it's monotonous, you know. But once that work is done, like, the flowers in the garden, the vegetables and stuff that you have growing have now room and the space and the freedom to be able to develop and grow more. And then once, you know, the flowers have bloomed and now they're dying out, or once you've picked your vegetables, like, it all has to restart over again. But, like, even within that process, the second you pick the weeds, they're already trying to grow back. You know what I mean? Like, there's space now, so there's these other things to try to take its space, and, like, that's the state of existence. That's the state of existence. It's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. Learning how to enjoy gardening, it can be a lot. If you grew up gardening, you probably don't realize it as much. But if you start trying to garden as an adult, you realize, like, how, like, intricate of a process it is. And, like, I mean, my grandpa was a farmer, and, like, all he had to do was grow the crops. They got harvested by a different farmer that would pay him for it. And, like, even, like, and once he had already, really all he had to do by the time I was growing up was what he told me was, like, furrow the land every so often, right? Every 3 or 7 years, he would furrow the land and switch out which fields were getting plowed, or harvested, rather. And then he would plow, replant, and regrow. But, like, they kind of started doing that themselves. Like, he had very little that he had to do aside from just maintenance. And most of when I was growing up, like most of the work, although that was how he was making a lot of his money, was selling those crops, mostly the work that I saw him doing was like the barn work. Like he had farm animals, and so like 4 o'clock every morning, you know, he's getting up and he's doing the farm work. He's cleaning the things, he's feeding the things, he's building the things, he's working on the things, he's doing all those different types of stuff. And like I didn't get to see a lot of the gardening process or he told me about it. He taught me about those things. Which I'm so thankful for. That was, you know, growing up with the farm was such a blessing, and it will always be like one of my favorite parts of my childhood, but also like one of my favorite like aspects of myself, because the way I grew up in my home and the way I grew up in my little like churches and schools and stuff was very different. And that's why like I have like this like I wanted to be a fashion designer and stuff, and I would play with dolls and makeup and like do my art. Like I spent most of my time entertaining myself making arts and crafts. But like having this whole like suburban type lifestyle, but then I also have like a very rural lifestyle where like, you know, well, even in the suburban I would like play in the mud and play with the frogs in our pond. And my dad he took my brothers fishing more than he ever took me, but like he would take me fishing, and like I always loved it. I hated it. I was such a prissy, weird little kid about things. I was just particular, and I was like scared of everything, and I was just like not appreciative of anything really. But I was also like a sweet kid, but I also wasn't. I was also angry and frustrated a lot. It's very different as a child than I am now, to be honest. But I'm also like, you can see, if you were to have known me as a child, like you can see me having developed into this person, and like it's cute and it's sweet and it can be endearing in different ways, but at the same time, like it's also like, damn, like I really actually I don't think anybody that knew me at like 5 or at 13 would have ever anticipated me being who and how I am today. Except me. And maybe my mom's mom. She seemed to always have really high hopes for me. And I think that's because she didn't really mature until she was like in her 50s, you know, 50s, 60s. But she did come around, and so she knew that there was a hope, and I was her namesake. But I think everybody else kind of saw me not as a lost cause, but just as a mess of a person. And so to be where I'm at now, and to have the standards that I have now for myself and for the world in which I exist, and to like command myself the ways that I do, and to still have such a tender heart for people and stuff like that, or to like I've cultivated so much of my tenderness and compassion for others as well. A lot of it did come naturally. I have always had a heart for others. I mean, I dedicated my life to missions. I dedicated my life to the Lord and to missions when I was growing up in the church multiple times, without much, like, it wasn't like I had somebody being like, this is what you should be doing. I felt called to those things. I always wanted to be a good person. I wanted to help others. I didn't want people to feel the ways that I always felt, which was like alone and confused and neglected and incapable. You know, that's like the worst. Those are the things that made me constantly feel like I wanted to kill myself. And like every time that life felt worth living, it really made me feel like, man, I don't want anybody else to feel like they want to kill themselves. I want them to feel this, that life is worth living, that it can be worth living. It takes work. And like I was just thinking about it the other day, where I was like, I wish I could just tell everyone that like if you feel like you want to kill yourself, like if you start to get that depressed, if you start to get depressed at all, if you start just like requiring more sleep than you normally would, and it's not because you're not sleeping, like you just have to sleep all the time, and if you're like overeating or undereating or only eating really unhealthy things, and if you're like catering to your drug use more than you normally would, and if you're catering to unhealthy relationships or codependent partnerships more than you normally would, those are all like telltale signs of pretty onset depression that a lot of people aren't actively aware of. A lot of people don't even realize that they're fully depressed until they're like crying all the time, or like so angry all the time that like they don't want to work anymore, and you know, until they get to the point where they like actively start having suicidal ideations. And like depression actually starts so much, it's such a process to that point. But if you're feeling so hopeless that you feel trapped in your body, in your reality, in your head, in your circumstances, and it feels like there's no way out, and you feel so hopeless or helpless that like you start to have suicidal ideation, like I beg you to just do something different for yourself. Get a new friend group. Like literally just leave those people behind. Move out of wherever it is that you're living. Move out of the house, move out of that town, get a different job, get a whole different type of career. Like do something completely different. Pick up a new hobby that you would have never in a million years thought of yourself doing, but always had like this weird desire to do. You just didn't think that it fit into the person that you are. Like get rid of your partner. Like I know those things sound extreme and they sound drastic, but like you matter. Your life is so important. Your experiences are so important. And I promise you that if you're willing to do for yourself what it takes to survive and to thrive, that those experiences will end up like being your story. Those experiences will end up helping others. It might not seem like it now. Like when I chose to get divorced, that was one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made at that time. I hadn't become estranged from my family at that point yet either. I really had never become estranged from anyone. I was extremely codependent. And to make that choice, and that was just because I loved my husband. I truly did love him and care for him. I didn't know how to. I was extremely toxic at the time. I had truly nothing to actually offer him that he wanted or that he needed. Just as much as he didn't have those things for me either. And we were just destroying each other. And when I recognized that, and when I knew that I loved him, like it was like, then I'm not going to keep you tied to me. He had already found somebody else that he wanted to be with that actually made him happy. He just couldn't be with them and wasn't going to date them because he wasn't going to be a bad guy. And like, you know, he was just going to double down in his misery with me. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. Go be with who you love. Go be with who you actually want to be with. Like, and it was hard. And my life was very hard after that. But it was all so necessary, and I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so thankful to like know, like, I don't know where he's at now. I haven't talked to him since we got divorced. But like I said this in a different video too, like I had seen where he had like been like a couple years after we had separated, where like he was this close to killing himself drinking, because he wasn't eating. He was like not taking care of himself at all, and he was just drinking himself to death while he was with me. He was so depressed. And I was so depressed too, and I like in the opposite way. We were so unhealthy. And to see that like even just a few years after that, when he had finally actually been with this person that he really did love, that really was good for him, like I only saw pictures, and I know you can't really judge by pictures, but like when somebody's that low, you can tell when they're far better off. Like he was glowing, like he was genuinely happy. I hadn't seen a smile like that on him since like not even when we were dating, like I saw it in pictures, like, before we even dated. He never actually really liked me, I don't think. Like, you know, and, like, those things were, like, hurtful and hard, and, like, I had my family telling me that I was going to go to hell for getting divorced. And I believed it, even. Like, that it was a sin to get divorced, but I just knew that it was what he needed. It was what my ex-husband needed, and I trusted that if it's what was good for him, then it's what would be good for me too. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. And I guess maybe I held on to it for a while, where I almost felt like I'd kind of sacrificed myself for him that way, where I kind of like made it a negative on myself, and then just like struggled in my own depression for a while. But like ultimately, like it was the best thing for both of us. So like despite all of these things, like I had believed truly, like I did not believe in divorce. I didn't believe in divorce. I believed that once you got married to a person, you just stay married to them. You work it out. It doesn't matter what things you're going through. You work it out. That's what shows that you love and care for a person. And, like, I believe that to a degree, but I think that if working together is literally damaging you, maybe you aren't the right tools for the job. Like, maybe it's not the right job that you're doing. Like, be sensible, be reasonable. Quit tying yourself to these external concepts of who it is you're supposed to be. And it's all just like a mass opinion appeal to people's opinions, right? Like, I didn't want to be denied by the church that had become my identity, and I didn't want to be denied by and rejected by my family who had become my identity, and I didn't want to lose this partner who had become my identity, and all of these things were my identity. And I was believing, like, God, I don't understand this. And because I was Christian at the time too, and like I was so confused, like why divorce looked like it was the right option, and it felt like it was the right thing to do, even though all of these things were telling me that it was not the right thing to do. But I felt in my heart, like, I just know that it is. I just know that it is, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to let whatever the cards fall where they may. It was the best decision I could have ever made for myself at that point in time. And I just want people to be able to, like, make those decisions for themselves, and to rest assured that even when things don't feel great, like, so much of the healing process is that way too. You know, when I had knee surgery, like, there were 2 months I was completely bedridden. It didn't feel good. I couldn't walk. Like, I could walk before the surgery, and now I couldn't walk. There would be something, if you were to look at that as a metaphor and like look at it in the other aspects of your life in which you're called to healing, you would think, like, why would I blame myself if the point is that I'm already struggling walking and that I'm trying to walk better? How could being stuck in a bed for 2 months possibly be helping me walk better? But like, that's exactly how healing works. You do need to take those times. You do need to take those breaks. Like, sometimes whole ass pieces of yourself need to be removed and replaced with whole ass pieces of someone else or like something else in order to work better, in order to function. And sometimes, like, you can, do, like, I was actually just talking to my roommate about that, because like I had knee surgery and had my ACL replaced. He had knee surgery and also had his ACL replaced, but I had mine replaced with a cadaver piece from a dead man, and he had his replaced with a piece of his hamstring. And so they made his leg be able to function properly, but they used what he already had. And because of that, now his leg is partially limited. Like, it will never be to the same degree that it was prior, where I'm like more prone to arthritis, and like can still feel like my knee isn't where it was prior to the injury, but it's really mostly just because of the injury. Like, the injury is what fucked it up. The repair that I received, like, has allowed me to actually be in a far better space than I was even prior to the surgery. Not because the ACL is so much better, but because the work that I did in the healing process caused me to like take on new disciplines that I didn't have prior, that have been actually very healthy for me. But as far as just the ACL is concerned, me having somebody else's who wasn't using it anymore, they were done with it. They were dead. They had no use of it anymore. For me to be able to find use in something that nobody had use of anymore, and to be able to take somebody else's trash and turn it into my own treasure, like, actually has truly benefited me more greatly than my roommate, who took what he already had and just was working with only what he had in order to make it work. We both work. He goes running. Like, he's very active, and it's not that like you wouldn't necessarily notice. He can notice, the differences in that way. And like, it's just kind of a balance for things. That's not to say one was right or one or the other, because like in his soul, what he needed was to use what he had, because he needed to be able to identify fully as himself, even with a slight injury. Where for me, I was willing to take on like some full ass other piece of something in order to become who I am. I didn't have such a set identity that way in myself. So like, to each their own, for sure. And that's what's so cool about growth and healing and stuff too, is that like it's not always the best thing, you know, what's best for this, even if they're the same kind of tree. When you're pruning this tree and pruning this tree, like there's a general basis as to what's going to be best when it comes to pruning them, but like depending on their positioning and where they're at and stuff like that too, like that's going to change exactly what they need. Every living being is its own individual and has its own capacity for growth and healing and sustenance and like its own right to thrive. But at the same time, like, you know, if you have like a plant that like drops all these sprouts and then all these baby plants start to grow up around it, like 1 in a million actually grow up into another tree. And sometimes like when they grow up into another trees, like then they start interfering with the mother tree and stuff like that, and it's actually a problem. And that was the whole reason that they kind of never were supposed to sprout up that way. But sometimes like it actually benefits each other, and then they create like a symbiotic relationship where they actually benefit each other. But like the death of all of those saplings, like, and all the different sprouts and stuff like that that start up and then just die down, like they create a nutrient for the mother tree to like continue to produce that way and potentially produce that sapling that ends up having a symbiotic relationship. It kind of all just ebbs and flows, and there's nothing like, that's what's so cool about gardens and nature too, is because like most people aren't gonna like look at a tree and be like, oh well, it's evil that it's doing that. I'm a little bit wild, right? So like there's been a couple times that I've seen like a tree like totally invading another tree's space, or like invasive plants or invasive species that way, where like they do seem evil, but like, you know, some plant from totally somewhere else across the world can come in and actually be able to benefit that garden and build an actual symbiotic relationship. So like there's just a balance there. There's just a balance. Nothing is so innate. Everything in the world is meant to just like go with the flow. And so I guess the moral of all of this message would be that like as the world continues to turn, as the wheel continues to turn and the world is absolutely on its head, when things are like incredibly stressful and it feels like you have nothing left, when you don't have a roof over your head and you don't have food to eat and you don't have money to get either of those things, and there's nobody that you can trust to provide those things for you or to help you feel safe and secure enough that you can provide those things for yourself, when you physically are incapable of providing those things for yourself on top of all of those other things happening, it still isn't the end of the world. And you, if you just hold on, and if you just focus on the things that you do have, and if you just focus on what little tiny little bit of happiness that you can possibly conjure in any given moment, it will carry you. It will carry you. All you need is faith the size of a mustard seed. A mustard seed is like incredibly small, but it grows into a giant, like luscious tree. All you need is something so tiny, and eventually like it'll get into the right space, and eventually it'll receive the right nutrients. You just have to trust those things, and you have to be willing to know that like don't add on to your struggle. If it's already hard enough, don't validate your depression. If it's already hard enough, don't like, you know, okay, if I'm already struggling eating healthy, the caffeine sometimes feels like a little bit of a treat because I'm a fucking addict, and it's like, oh, well, I've been being so healthy that like I can have this little treat, but caffeine dehydrates you, and so it actually is giving me more work because now I have to double, triple, quadruple my hydration just to be balanced, just for this little treat. So consider that many of the things that you may tell yourself are actually making you happy are actually dehydrating you, and they're actually giving you more work to do. And if you're already struggling to hydrate yourself enough, why are you adding on to how hard it's going to be hydrated when you know that hydration is what you need in order to flush out all the bad stuff and be able to properly process all the good stuff? You know, there's a reason that things are the way that they are. There's a reason that natural living feels so balanced. There's a reason that like, and like that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy caffeine every once in a while. That doesn't mean that you can't like do your drugging or do your fucking or do like whatever it is that you enjoy doing. It's just consider what it is that you really deserve, what it is that you really need in order to be balanced, what it is that you really need in order to be happy and secure and stable, and give yourself those things. It's not always going to feel great. There might be long periods of times that it doesn't feel great. For 2 months, I couldn't get out of my bed. And when I did get out of my bed, I had to use crutches and I had this brace and I was like peeing all over myself all the time and like had to be on these pain medications that were making me absolutely insane. But that was part of the process, you know, and like I'm so much better off for it now. And like some things like will damage you. If you break a Tiffany lamp, if you shatter it into pieces, you can put it all back together, glue it all back together, heat up the glass, make it look nice. You can refurbish it, and even if you refurbish it to where it looks just as good as it was, it will never have the same value that it had before, right? Like the more that you break it and the more that you add onto it, you can turn it into something completely different. You can turn it into a beautiful work of art that was something totally different than the lamp that it originally was. And it can be a very good thing. It can even be more valuable at the end than it was. But like, it's the work. It's the work that gets put into a thing that determines those things. So like, don't be afraid to do the work for yourself. Don't feel like you have to do the work for others. Like I said, like I did so much of the work for myself just because I had to. I was forced to. The only way I could survive was to do the things that life was forcing me to do. I didn't have money. I didn't have shelter. I didn't have security. I didn't have anybody helping me out. In fact, I had people actively trying to kill me while I was fucking homeless, while I was like, and all I was trying to do was just provide for my dogs so that to know that they had something to eat, to know that they were safe, to know that they were okay. Like, but all of it to be able to be in this place that I've never been able to be in my life. In my life. I am 35 years, almost 35 years old. And this is the first time in my life I've been ever able to just like breathe freely. It is so worth it. You're so worth it. You're so worth the time and energy that you could take to make sure that you're okay. And like I said, if it takes like selling this house that you invested everything into, that you've put so much work into, and just up and going and living in a camper somewhere, but you know in your heart that that's just what you're being called to, do it. Don't forsake those callings. Like, everybody may be telling you you're stupid. You're going to go to hell for that. That's the worst decision you could make. You're going to lose everything. You could lose everything because of it. I ended up living in my cars after I got divorced. Like, everything did seem to go to shit for like 10 years. Okay, but be patient. Just be patient. Just keep doing the work. Let it cultivate a heart in you that is strong. Let it cultivate an alchemy in you that is capable of turning everything bad into something that you can find to be grateful for. Let it cultivate you into a beautiful garden that you're proud to sit in, that you're proud to be in, that you're proud to look at. You know, do the work. It's worth it. It's worth it. And you're worth it. You know, I'm not saying like up and leave your family and just go do the things that make you happy. I don't think that's really going to make you happy in the end. I think that if you are in a toxic family structure and you need to become estranged from them, that's one thing. But I also think that it's different for every single individual. So like when I speak on the choices that I've made in my life that have benefited me, like please just take them with a grain of salt. Like take them for what they're worth, which is like far more to me than they should ever be worth to you, outside of as like a motivation and guide, but not like a direct map, right? Because like I'm not going where you're going. You know, we all have our own paths to the top of the mountain, and it looks different for each and every one of us. And in fact, we actually, each of our lives is its own mountain in which we're trying to climb. And like, nothing really matters so much that nothing matters more than you just being you in alignment and in contentment with that. And the world isn't always going to reflect where you're at in your life. And that's okay. You're still allowed to have peace. You're still allowed to be happy. You're still allowed to take care of yourself. And in fact, should. Take those times. Take that energy. This is your life. Your life. Put the world away for a minute. And just focus on you. Give yourself what you need. Even if it's really hard. Even if it's really painful. Resetting your nose after it's been broken is almost more painful sometimes than when you broke it. But it's important. It's important if you want things to work properly. And like I said, there's some damage that can be done where things will never be the same. And that's okay too. It can be even better if you just do the work. Embrace yourself. Embrace your inner child. Embrace the creativity within you that is trying so hard to come out through all of these painful experiences, because that is where it comes from. Let these things guide you. Trust that they are guiding you. You can spend 40 years walking through a desert not knowing where you're going, feeling like you swear you're going in circles. And is there really even a promised land? I promise you there is. If you believe in yourself, in your journey, in your worth, in the work that you do. So just keep doing it. And you will see it. You will see it. And if you take this advice, and if 30 years down the line you finally see the results of those things, I would love for you to find me and let me know. I don't know if I'm even going to be here. I don't know what the world is going to look like tomorrow. Like I said, I have this weird feeling that like the second that my work feels done, which I also don't feel like my work is ever really going to be done, but like that the second that I feel truly contented and truly settled in, like that retirement phase age sort of thing, that I'm going to be swept up in a cloud and nobody will ever hear from me again, and I won't be anywhere to be found, and that will be the legacy that I leave, and I'm okay with that. But until then, there is still more work to be done. Just be patient with yourself. Love yourself. Give yourself the things that you need. If you aren't finding it in the world, be it. Be it. If it's something that's inside of you that you want to see, like if you want something, then it's already coming from within you. And if you're not finding it outside of yourself, be it within yourself. Watch as you cultivate a reality that holds those things, where there's space for those things. You crafted that space. You can be proud of yourself because you know that you crafted that space. Like I said, I have done a lot of work in this world that nobody would ever know except for me, because I know I did that work and I've watched the results. Those are things that have given me a sense of integrity and pride and confidence that I cannot explain, that have carried me more than most any other thing would or has. It's worth it. Okay, love you.